Yeah. So, what are your thoughts on analog computing and quantum computing and digital computing?
Yeah, so obviously the most recently I was speaking about, analog systems and digital systems. So now what we know of now today, we use a digital system. So now a digital system, we're dealing with zeros and ones. So how does 0 and 1 works? Again, we're dealing with a transistor. And again, what they're doing now, again, it's the semiconductor. So the conductor, you have the insulator. So in between that, it's a semiconductor. And then what they use is something called ion implantation. For those who deal with the extended cut, they already know we've touched on that. So again, it's the ion implantation. And they use ion implantation now. So again, to force these, right now it's silicon, they force it to conduct by forcing essentially ions into it to force it to conduct. And that's your semiconductor. So now they have the transistor, and the transistor now, again, I think they have the base and then the emitter, and then it's the entry point. So what it basically works is that a single voltage is required to get the bridge to drop down, and then once the bridge is down, now it can store a charge. You see, so now that's basically, you have zeros and ones, you can have it on or off. That's the system that we're currently using right now. But again, so now quantum computing now is actually analog. It's actually analog. It's an analog system. That's what I've come to understand in my research. It's analog. So now analog system is where rather than have the zeros and ones, the circuitry itself. I'm still doing research. I want to get a book and I want to expand on the class for the future. So analog systems, again, it's the circuitry is wired to essentially compute itself. So for example, you obviously got the camera. The camera now is basically just a lens, right? A lens that captures light. That's all it is. So a camera, could just be analog. We could have an analog system just for a camera. We don't really need digital for a camera, really. For a camera system, really, we only need digital for storage. That's really what it is. That's my whole take on it.
Exactly.
Right.
And we don't need digital storage based on what we've learned. Information is not going to store it. We just need to have access to it later on. If it's distributable system.
Right. So again, the camera itself again could be. So a lot of the phones, systems, the camera, the microphone, all these different things could just be analog. So now with analog systems, now quantum computing is actually analog. But the example that they've given us was that we got the zeros and ones, and then the quantum computing was zeros and ones at the same time. But reality, the quantum computing is actually analog, and that's the misconception. You see, so really, rather than we're putting these particles in superposition, right? And then we're entangling them to basically get this type of analog system. You see, and that's really what it comes down to. And the brain is primarily analog too. And that's why it's so advanced. That's why it uses less energy. It runs on the power of a light bulb because analog systems. That's really what it comes down to.
Wow. That's profound. That's profound. Wow. So essentially what you're saying here is that we have to essentially go back to an analog perspective of this philosophical in a way.
Right. Really, I feel like computing itself, we need to be taught analog. We shouldn't be taught digital. Digital is the limitation. We should be taught analog first. That's true nature computing. That's natural computing. That's the highest level. We need to be taught that first, but they teach you analog, digital. And then I feel like what's happening now in the school system, they teach you, and we've touched on this, so we can elaborate. They give you the garbage, or they give you the minimum, and then they keep the high knowledge for themselves. And that's what it comes down to. So they're keeping the analog systems and high knowledge for themselves.
Wow, that's profound. So yeah, so essentially we have to go back to a fundamental understanding of nature.
Right.
Go back to how nature works. Even at the fundamental level, plants utilize computing, and they use quantum computing to convert the sun energy. So why is it so hard for us to replicate that model with our systems? We're a biological system. We run by the same rules.
Right. And that's what it comes down to. I think another subject with Mr. touched on, again, solar power should really be all we need. But so people, they got the combustion engine and all these different things, and one of the fossil fuels, we don't really need that. Solar power should be all we need, but we spoke about how it's not efficient, but they can't profit off really at all solar or renewable. They can't profit. So it's all about profit.
Exactly. Exactly. So profit will be the equivalent of a software. Profit will be of the gatekeeper. It will be equivalent of a vertical system that prevents the distribution of disinformation and open access to everyone. You know, and then this makes me think about the blockchain. What, like how does blockchain technology relate to this?
Actually, that's actually a good topic. I wanted to actually about the NFT. We can actually touch on that. That's actually a good topic. I'm glad you brought that up.
Mm-hmm.
So again, you know, with the blockchain now, again, we're storing information, and you know, we understand that, you know, it stays within the blockchain, and everybody's phone, everybody's device has this blockchain, and it can't be edited. For you to edit one blockchain, and because it's constantly growing, you got to edit all of them. And you don't have a computer powerful enough to do it. You know.
Rocking to the ancient rhythm. Rocking to the ancient rhythm. Love is my religion. Love is my addiction. African tradition. Free your mind.